I awoke in a cold sweat. After throwing my soaked bed sheets aside, I rose from my bed, knowing I wouldn't sleep again after the most recent nightmare I had. I don't consider myself frightened easily by them, especially since I have an odd knack of knowing when I'm in a dream. But this time it was different. The dream began with me standing in a dimly lit residential street, one I recognized from before but could not remember from where or when. The scene was devoid of any colors save the dark orange glow of the street lamps that littered the road. As I walked, I wondered just where I was and how I got there in the first place, as I had neither my wallet or my phone on my person, for all the rotten luck. At a small road turnoff, I stopped on a street corner to look around and get my bearings. Abruptly, one of the street lamps far off of my right down the street flickered and shattered. I was quite alarmed at this point because earlier there was only silence. And then more lamps shattered around me, left and right, until only one left was on the one hanging above me. I could feel my heart beating, and I backed nearly to the only source of light until I was tightly gripping the cold metal behind my back. In a distance, I could hear footsteps moving towards me from directly in front of me. And then more from the pathways left and right from me. It was pitch black all around me, besides the dim lamp showing above my head, and a part of me knew I was probably more in danger under the lamp than outside in the darkness. But I didn't care. The footsteps grew louder and closer, and then I finally saw something enter my protective light dome. At the edge of the lamp's reach, something stood into the light, so I can only see its legs to the knee. They were black and coarse, almost as if they were made of ash. Around me, 4 or 5 of the creatures entered too, each looking identical to the first. I sunk down along the lamppost until I made contact with the ground. Still keeping my hands clasped to it, the initial creature was standing right in front of me, and then took another step. Its movement was rigid and slow, and before I saw his face, I closed my eyes and shut them tight. After a few seconds, I opened them, expecting to be back into reality. Instead, I saw the creature face to face to me, kneeling down, staring directly into my eyes. It was fully black and had a slender human shape, with no discriminable features besides its cold, sunken eye sockets. Paralyzed with fear, I stared back at his face until I noticed the rest of his group began to kneel down and stare at me too. I watched on in horror as they all looked at me under the lamp. They whispered something barely audible, in unison. 12, 37. I slumped to the floor, suddenly exhausted, and the first creature followed my gaze as I passed out. Back in reality, I had got to my feet and was on my way to get a glass of water before I figured out what to do with the rest of my night. I turned on my light in my hallway and headed down the stairs to my kitchen. After a few sips, I noticed the time on the oven timer. 12:37. I laughed about the coincidence until I heard the light shatter from upstairs.